This information is presented by Bluewater Auto Restoration. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It is officially Week 5 of the 2026 Bluewater Auto Restoration podcast. As always, we are releasing these new deep dives every Saturday morning to help you get smarter about the machines you love, the history behind them, and, well, how to keep them running for the next generation.
It's good to be back. And today, we're tackling a topic that I think every single car owner, and I mean every single one, has wrestled with at least once.
Oh, I'm sure.
Whether you drive a 2026 hybrid fresh off the lot or a 1966 muscle car that's been in your family for generations, you've been there, usually standing in a fluorescent lit aisle at 8:00 p.m.
Feeling slightly confused.
I'm maybe a little desperate.
Oh, absolutely. I know exactly the scene you're painting. We are diving into the chemistry of coolant, beyond the color of antifreeze. And you nailed the setting. I think everyone listening has had that specific moment of panic.
The wall of confusion, that's what I call it.
It really is. You walk into the auto parts store, maybe you're prepping for a road trip, or maybe you just notice the temperature gauge creeping up a little higher than you'd like.
Right.
And you think, okay, simple. I just need to top off my radiator. Seems like the simplest task in the world.
It should be simple. I mean, it's just fluid, right?
Exactly. You walk in, you turn the corner into the chemical aisle, and you are suddenly confronted with a literal rainbow.
It's overwhelming.
It really is. You've got bottles that are green, red, blue, yellow, orange, pink, purple. It looks more like the sports drink aisle at a grocery store than a place for serious automotive chemicals.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And the immediate assumption, the one I think we're all guilty of making, is that there is a standardized system here. Like, surely, if my car has green liquid in it, I buy the green bottle.
Of course.
If it has red, I buy the red bottle. Feels like it should be a coding system, you know? Like electrical wiring, black, it's ground, red is hot, or like traffic lights, green means go.
It is a completely logical assumption. Our brains are wired to look for patterns, especially in technical fields. I mean, in almost every other part of automotive maintenance, color coding is there to help you.
Right. Brake fluid, transmission fluid.
Exactly. Brake fluid is generally a specific color range until it goes bad. Transmission fluid is almost always that distinct cherry red. But here is the reveal, and we need to drop this thesis right at the start because it changes how you have to look at that wall.
Okay.
Color is not a standard.
Wait, hold on. I need you to say that again because I think a lot of people just did a double take while they were driving.
Color is not a standard. It is a dye. It is not a certification. It's not a regulatory requirement. Relying on the color of the fluid to tell you what chemicals are inside that bottle is a trap.
A trap.
It's a trap that can lead to some very expensive, very silent damage to your engine.
Okay, let's unpack this immediately because that is actually kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
You're saying that if I go and buy the green bottle for my car that has green coolant, I might still be buying the completely wrong chemical composition.
Precisely. You could have two bottles of green liquid on a shelf right next to each other. One is an old-school inorganic additive formula designed for a 1970s truck-heavy silicates, phosphates, the works.
The old stuff.
The old stuff. The other bottle could be a modern phosphate OAT blend, also dyed green, for a new Korean compact car. If you mix them, or if you put the wrong one in the wrong car, you are starting a chemical war inside your radiator.
A chemical war.
Yes. The dye is just marketing. It's branding. It's not chemistry.
So what are the stakes here? Because I think most people assume that as long as it's wet and doesn't freeze, it's doing its job. We tend to think of coolant as just colored water that handles heat. If I get this wrong, are we just talking about the car overheating on the highway?
See, that's the tricky part. If it was just immediate overheating, people would learn their lesson quickly. You'd pour it in, drive 5 miles, steam would shoot out, and you'd say, oops, wrong bottle.
You'd fix it.
You'd flush it, fix it, and move on. But coolant failures are what we call silent failures.
That sounds significantly more ominous.
It is. The damage rarely happens immediately. We're talking about long-term chemical reactions. When you mix incompatible coolants or you put the wrong chemistry in the wrong engine, you trigger mechanisms like galvanic corrosion inside the engine block.
What's that exactly?
It's where you have dissimilar metals, like an aluminum head on an iron block, and the coolant acts like battery acid, basically. It starts pulling metal ions from one part and depositing them on another. You get electrolysis.
So the fluid is actually eating the engine parts.
Yes. It's not just failing to protect, it is actively attacking. You get clogged heater cores. You get water pump seals that erode from the inside out because the chemical attacks the specific plastic or rubber used in that particular seal.
Wow.
And worst of all, you get hidden sludge formation.
Sludge, like oil sludge.
It's a similar consistency, but a different cause. Basically, the chemical additives in the different fluids, they react with each other and they drop out of the liquid suspension. They can't stay mixed.
So they solidify.
They turn into a gel or thick paste. Sometimes it looks like brown toothpaste, sometimes like clay, and it stops flowing. It gets stuck in the tight corners of the cooling jacket inside the engine.
So your temperature gauge might look fine.
For a while, yeah. Your gauge might look okay because the water pump is still spinning and the main sensor is seeing some flow. But deep inside the engine, in the back of the cylinder head where the flow is lower, you are creating hot spots.
Which can lead to huge problems.
Huge. You are warping heads. You are rotting the metal. And this damage, this usually appears months or even years after the coolant change.
So you never connect the dots. You just think, oh, my water pump failed because it's old.
Exactly.
You don't think, I killed my water pump 6 months ago with the wrong jug of yellow liquid?
Precisely. You blame the hardware, but the software, the fluid, was the assassin. That is why the mission for this deep dive is to move beyond those simple charts you see on the internet.
Oh, I've seen those. Green for old cars, orange for GM.
They look helpful, they get shared on forums all the time, but they're dangerously oversimplified. We need to understand the actual chemistry, the IAT, the OAT, the HOAT.
It sounds like alphabet soup, but I promise the listener, we are going to make this make sense. And specifically, since this is presented by Bluewater Auto Restoration, we are going to have a heavy focus on what this means for classic cars versus modern cars.
Right.
Because looking at the research, that seems to be where the biggest disasters happen.
That is the danger zone, yes.
Oh.
The intersection of modern chemistry and vintage metallurgy is where things go wrong very, very quickly.
All right, so let's start where most of us started, the old school standard, the green stuff.
The green stuff, yes.
I'm looking at the source material here, and there's this great image of a vintage car icon next to a pool of bright neon green liquid. For decades, this was just antifreeze. You didn't even really have to specify.
Right. If you open the hood of a 69 Camaro, a 70s Ford truck, or really anything built before the mid-90s, you saw green. This is chemically known as IAT.
IAT.
Inorganic Additive Technology.
IAT. Inorganic Additive Technology. Okay, break that down for us. What is the technology doing? Because isn't the main job just to stop the water from freezing?
Well, there are two jobs. The base of almost all coolant is ethylene glycol or propylene glycol. That's the alcohol base.
Okay.
That's the stuff that lowers the freezing point so your block doesn't crack in winter and raises the boiling point so you don't steam over in summer. That part is pretty standard across the board. But the technology part that refers to the additive package.
The secret sauce.
The secret sauce, yeah. The stuff that stops your engine from rusting away. Water is corrosive. Hot water is very corrosive. And in IAT, those additives are primarily silicates and phosphates.
Silicates and phosphates.
Yeah.
Okay. How do they actually work inside the engine? What are they doing?
Think of IAT as a shield, or maybe like a layer of paint. When you pour that green liquid into your engine, those silicates rush to the metal surfaces, the cast iron block, the brass radiator tubes, the lead solder, and they chemically bond to the surface to create a physical coating, a barrier.
So it's like painting the inside of the engine while it runs.
In a way, yes. It's a great analogy. It lays down a microscopic layer of armor. This is why it is so good for older vehicles. Those classic engines, they have heavy cast iron blocks. They have copper and brass radiators.
Right.
And crucially, they have lead solder holding the radiator tanks together. IAT is incredibly fast-acting. It just coats everything it touches very quickly and protects that heavy old-world metal from corrosion.
So it's a barrier method. It's literally just separating the water from the metal.
Correct. And that is why it is so forgiving, which is a word you'll hear restoration guys use a lot. It doesn't require the cooling system to be perfectly sealed or surgically clean.
Which old cars are not.
Exactly. They breathe. IAT just coats whatever it touches and protects it. It protects the water pump lubricant seal. It protects the thermostat. It's a brute force solution. It's like wearing a hazmat suit and nothing gets to your skin.
That sounds perfect. I mean, why did we ever change? If we had this magic green shield that protected everything, why do we now have 5 other colors and all these compatibility issues?
Because the shield is heavy and it wears out. That is the trade-off.
Oh, okay.
The service life of traditional green IAT is short, usually 2 years or, say, 30,000 miles, give or take.
That's pretty frequent by modern standards. I mean, modern cars go 10,000 miles just on an oil change. Changing coolant every 2 years feels archaic.
It is. The problem is that as the fluid circulates, that shield coating gets knocked off or just depleted. The silicates drop out of the solution. Once they're gone, protection stops and corrosion starts almost immediately.
So it's a hard deadline.
A very hard deadline. But there's another issue. If you leave IAT in too long, the silicates that drop out of the solution can become abrasive.
Abrasive, like sand.
Exactly. Like a fine liquid sandpaper circulating through your engine. They can start eating away at water pump seals from the outside.
So the very thing that was protecting the engine starts to damage it if you leave it too long.
Correct. So the industry wanted something that lasted longer and was more stable. Plus, you had environmental concerns coming up and huge changes in engine materials. We stopped building engines out of heavy iron and started using aluminum to save weight and improve efficiency.
Right. Which brings us to the modern shift.
Yeah.
The source image shows a red or pink liquid, and it's sitting next to a clock icon and a modern V-engine icon. This is the stuff that claims to last 5 years, 10 years, 150,000 miles.
Exactly. This is the shift to OAT.
OAT.
Organic acid technology.
OAT. So the green stuff was inorganic, using silicates. This is organic. Does that mean it's, like, safer for the environment? Or made of vegetables?
Hey, not quite. Organic here refers to carbon-based chemistry, specifically organic acids. Common ones are things like 2-EA, that's 2-ethylhexanoic acid, or sebacate.
Okay, that's a mouthful.
It is. But the key thing is the mechanism is completely different. Remember how the green IAT worked by coating the metal?
The shield.
Right. OAT doesn't do that. It doesn't coat anything. It leaves the metal bare. Instead, it works by neutralizing corrosion as it starts. It operates on a chemical level at the specific site of the oxidation.
So instead of building a wall around the whole city,
Right.
it's like a security guard patrolling the streets and only dealing with trouble where it pops up.
That is a great analogy, a perfect analogy. It's a targeted response. And because it doesn't have to lay down a heavy layer of material everywhere, the additives deplete much, much slower.
And that's how you get the long life.
That is how you get those 150,000-mile service intervals. It's just waiting for a rust spot to form, and then it attacks the rust spot chemically and neutralizes it.
And the source material mentions this was designed for modern engines.
Yeah.
Why the distinction? Why does an aluminum engine prefer this security guard over the green shield?
Two big reasons. First, heat transfer. A thick layer of silicates actually acts as an insulator. It keeps heat in the metal. Yeah, it's a small effect, but it's real. Modern aluminum engines are designed to be smaller, run hotter, and shed heat very efficiently. OAT leaves the metal bare, so the heat transfer from the metal to the liquid is much more efficient. It helps them run cooler.
Ah, so the shield was actually blocking heat escape.
Exactly. Second, modern engines have very tight tolerances and narrow coolant passages. If you use the old green stuff in a modern engine and let it go too long, and those silicates precipitate it
The
out,
liquid sandpaper?
yeah, they could clog those tiny passages. OAT is cleaner, it keeps the system flowing freely.
Okay, so here is the million-dollar question for our listeners who are into restoration. If I have a classic car, let's say a nice 65 Mustang or a 57 Chevy, and I want to be a good owner, shouldn't I put the better red fluid in it? It lasts longer, it cools better, it's newer tech. Isn't that an upgrade?
That is the single most dangerous assumption in the hobby.
Why?
Because OAT, that red or pink stuff, is an acid technology. It is designed for aluminum and modern plastics and modern gaskets. It does not play nice with the materials used in 1965.
What happens?
OAT attacks lead solder. It attacks copper. It attacks brass. Put red OAT coolant into an original copper and brass radiator from the 60s, the chemistry will literally eat the solder holding the radiator together.
Seriously?
Yes. It creates a blooming corrosion. It looks like a white, fluffy growth at the joints. You will end up with leaks at all the seams.
So it's not a defect in the fluid.
No.
It's just the wrong environment.
Precisely. It is chemistry behaving correctly, but in the wrong room. Also, OAT is very sensitive to air. Older cooling systems are open systems.
What do you mean open systems?
Think about the radiator cap on an old car. When the engine gets hot, the fluid expands and pushes past the cap, usually down a tube that just dumps onto the ground.
Right, the overflow tube.
Or into a non-pressurized plastic bottle that just kind of breathes. When it cools, it sucks air back in. Modern systems are sealed under pressure. They don't let air in. If you expose OAT chemistry to too much air and mixed metals, like the iron and brass in a classic car, it reacts with the oxygen and can turn into that thick brown sludge.
So, rule number 1. Do not put the red stuff in your classic car just to save yourself a fluid change every 2 years.
Never. Unless you have completely modernized the entire cooling system. Aluminum radiator, new seals, new pump, sealed overflow stick to what the machine was built for. You are trying to fix a problem that doesn't exist and creating 3 new ones.
Okay, so we have the old school green, which is the shield, and we have the modern red, which is the acid neutralizer, but then we have blue. The source image connects this to a modern sedan icon. What's the deal with blue?
Blue is the compromise. We call this HOAT.
HOAT.
Hybrid Organic Acid Technology.
Ah, hybrid. So it's a mix of the two.
Exactly. The engineers looked at IAT and said, we like the fast protection of silicates. Specifically, silicates are really good at protecting the water pump impeller from cavitation.
What's cavitation?
That's where tiny bubbles form in a low-pressure area, like on the back of the spinning pump blades, and then they implode with a lot of force. It hits the metal. OAT isn't as good at preventing that. But they also looked at OA and said, we like the long life. So HOAT blends the organic acids from OAT with a controlled amount of silicates from IAT.
The best of both worlds.
That was the goal. But here's where geography comes into play, and it gets even more complicated. You see this blue stuff a lot in Japanese vehicles. Honda, Nissan, Subaru. But the Japanese formulation is interesting. They are HOAT, but they are typically POG.
Kyochi.
Phosphated HOA. Japanese engineers love phosphates for corrosion protection, but they hate silicates.
Why do they hate silicates?
Because Japanese water pump seals were traditionally designed in a way that the abrasiveness of silicates would cause them to leak prematurely. So Asian blue coolant is usually high phosphate, zero silicate.
Okay, so blue for a Honda is PHOA.
Right, but then you go to Europe, BMW, VW, Mercedes, they have GOT or SIOT. They love silicates, but they hate phosphates.
Why do the Europeans hate phosphates?
Because of the water in Europe. The tap water in Europe is much harder. It has a lot of minerals like calcium and magnesium.
Right.
If you mix phosphates with hard water, they react with the calcium and magnesium to form scale, like the white stuff that builds up in your tea kettle.
So they banned phosphates to prevent their engines from scaling up and clogging radiator tubes.
Exactly. So now you see why color is failing us so badly. You could have a blue coolant for a Honda, which is high phosphate, no silicate,
Right.
and a blue coolant for a BMW, which is high silicate, no phosphate. They look the same. They're both blue. But if you swap them, you are introducing a chemical that the manufacturer specifically tried to avoid. You put the European stuff in the Honda, you might damage the water pump seal, you put the Japanese stuff in the BMW with hard water, you might create scale.
That is incredibly confusing. It seems like every manufacturer decided they needed their own special blend based on their local water and their specific gasket suppliers.
They did. And this is where we start getting into the really messy part of the story. The color coding starts to break down completely when you walk into that auto parts store and see the universal jug.
Which brings us to yellow. The source image here has a scary list of logos next to it. VW, Renault, BMW, Porsche, Opel, Lamborghini, Mercedes, and it's labeled universal or hybrid technology.
Universal. That is the word that causes more problems than any other on a bottle of coolant.
When I see universal, I think, great, I don't have to think. I can just pour this in anything. It's the O-negative blood type of the car world.
And that is exactly what the marketing department wants you to think. But let me give you a hard no on that. Universal does not mean it is chemically compatible with every engine ever made.
So what does it mean?
It means it is a compromise formula that the chemical company hopes won't cause immediate catastrophic failure in most modern cars.
That's a very different definition.
Yeah.
So what is actually in the yellow bottle?
It usually means it is a yellow-dyed hybrid, a HOAT, or sometimes a pure OA that is intended to be a middle ground. Usually it's an OAT formula with maybe very low silicates and no phosphates. But here's the reality. 2 yellow bottles sitting next to each other on the shelf from 2 different brands can have completely different chemical formulas.
Really?
Yes. One might be a low silicate formula designed for a Mercedes. The other might be a formula for a Ford. They are both yellow. They both say universal or multi-vehicle. But if you mix them, or if you pour that universal yellow into a system that requires a specific chemistry, you are rolling the dice.
This is the mixing risk you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Let's play out a scenario. Let's say I'm driving a classic car that has the old green IAT in it.
Okay.
I'm low on coolant. I go into the store and I buy a jug of universal yellow because the bottle says Works with all colors. And I top it off. What happens inside my radiator?
You are creating a chemistry experiment in a closed system. Best case scenario. You just dilute the protection of both fluids. The OAT acids in the yellow might start lifting the silicate shield from the green. You shorten the life of the coolant significantly. Instead of 2 years of protection, maybe now you only have 6 months before corrosion starts.
And the worst case?
Worst case, precipitation. The silicates from the green react with the organic acids or other additives from the yellow. They can't stay in the liquid. They fall out of suspension and form that gel we talked about. We call it brown slime.
Brown slime. That sounds difficult to flush out.
It's nearly impossible. It's sticky. It coats the inside of the heater core first because those are the smallest tubes in the whole system.
So you lose heat in the cabin.
That's usually the first warning sign. Your heat stops working in the winter. Then it clogs the tiny tubes in the radiator. Your car starts running hotter and hotter. By the time you realize what happened, you might need to replace the entire cooling system, radiator, heater core, water pump, hoses, all because of a universal top-off.
That is wild. It really reinforces the idea that you can't trust the label on the front of the bottle if it's just selling you convenience.
Convenience is the enemy of longevity in this case. Universal is a marketing term, not a chemical one.
Okay, we have one more major color to cover, orange. The source image links this to a thermometer and a fire icon. It says extended protection, high temperature.
Right. When people see orange, they usually think of one thing. Dex-Cool.
General Motors.
General Motors. Dex-Cool was their big push into OAT chemistry back in the 90s. It was designed for very long drain intervals, 5 years, 150,000 miles. It was designed for high heat in their modern engines.
But Dex-Cool has a bit of a reputation, doesn't it? If you search car forums, people speak about it like it's a curse.
It does. In the early days, there were a lot of issues with Dex sludge, class action lawsuits, the whole thing. But again, we have to be fair to the chemistry. Often the sludge wasn't because the fluid itself was inherently bad. It was a combination of factors.
Like what?
Well, a big one was people letting the coolant level get low. As we discussed, OAT, which is what Dex-Cool is, hates air. When the level dropped, air got into the radiator. The hot vapor mixed with the OAT chemistry and the cast iron in some of those engine blocks created a rust sludge.
Ah, so it was an air contamination issue.
That was a big part of it. It was also an issue with gaskets. The specific acid, 2-EHA, used in Dex-Cool, had a tendency to soften certain plastic intake manifold gaskets used by GM at the time.
So the fluid actually ate the gaskets.
In some cases, yes. It plasticized them, made them soft and weak. But that was 20-plus years ago. The gaskets have changed, the formulas have been tweaked, but the reputation stuck.
And mixing green and orange sounds like a bad Halloween cocktail.
It is the absolute worst combination. If you mix green IAT with orange OAT, it creates a thick clay-like sludge almost immediately. It is a complete disaster. But here's the confusing part about orange today. Just because a bottle is orange doesn't mean it is Dex-Cool.
We're back to the color as a dye warning.
Exactly. Ford uses an orange coolant now that is a completely different formula from GM's. Chrysler had an orange coolant that was a HOAT, not an OAT. Orange is just a dye. It is not a certification. You cannot look at an orange fluid and say, that is GM Dex-Cool with 100% certainty anymore.
This feels like we are pulling the rug out from under the listener. We've gone through green, red, blue, yellow, orange, and at every single step you've said, well, usually it's this, but you can't trust it. It feels like we were leaving people with less certainty than when we started.
That is the reality of the industry. It's chaotic. And that brings us to the core philosophy of this deep dive. If we can't trust the color, what do we trust? Because we have to put something in the radiator.
Let's get to the solution. The outline calls this specs over color.
Specs over color. It is the only way to be safe. You have to stop looking at the pretty liquid and the marketing slogans on the front of the bottle, and you have to start reading the fine print on the back.
So what specifically am I looking for? I'm holding the bottle in the store. I'm squinting at the back label. What do I need to see?
There are 3 things. Number 1, and this is the most important, is the manufacturer specification. This is the code.
Like a secret password.
Basically, every single car manufacturer has a specific alphanumerical code for the fluid they require. If you drive a Ford, you need to look for the WSS number in your owner's manual. It'll be something like WSS M97B44D.
Okay.
If you drive a Volkswagen or Audi, look for G12, G13, or the newest one is G12 Evo. If you drive a GM, look for the words Dex-Cool approved. If you drive a Toyota, look for Toyota Super Long Life. Those codes are everything.
And if the bottle in your hand doesn't list that specific code for your car?
Put it back on the shelf. I don't care if the color matches. I don't care if it says universal. If it doesn't have the spec, it's not the right fluid. The spec confirms that the chemistry has been tested by the manufacturer against the seals, the metals, and the plastics in your specific engine.
Okay, that's clear. Check the spec. What's the second thing?
Additive technology. You need to know if your car requires IAT, OAT, or HOAT. This is usually listed on the bottle, though sometimes you have to read the ingredients list to figure it out.
And this goes back to our discussion about materials.
Right, which is the third thing. Engine materials. This is absolutely critical for the Bluewater auto restoration audience. You have to know what your engine is made of.
Let's drill down on that restoration context again.
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier that classic engines are machines and modern engines are systems. That's a really interesting distinction. What do you mean by that?
A classic engine, say a 1950s straight six, is a collection of robust, heavy parts bolted together. Cast iron blocks, steel head, thick cork or paper gaskets, copper radiator. It was designed to be serviced, taken apart, and put back together. It's tolerant. It relies on heavy-duty, simple chemistry like the green IAT to coat and protect it. It's a machine.
Okay. And a modern engine?
A modern engine is a system. The cooling fluid isn't just a liquid in there keeping it cool. It's interacting with plastic impellers, multiple aluminum alloys, complex heater valves, and electronic temperature sensors. The fluid is a structural component of the system.
A component?
Yes, you cannot just swap the fluid without disrupting the delicate balance of the system. Modern engines are designed around a specific fluid chemistry. Classic engines were just designed for a fluid.
So, for the restoration crowd, what is the safest bet? If I just bought a classic car, maybe a barn find, and I don't know what's in it, what do I do?
If it's a true classic cast iron brass radiator, the safest bet is to flush it completely.
Yeah.
Get every single drop of the old mystery fluid out. Use a good flushing agent, and then go back to traditional green IAT.
Even though it has a short life? Even though I have to change it every 2 years?
Yes, absolutely. Change it every 2 years. It's cheap insurance. It is predictable. It will not eat your solder joints. It will not turn into sludge if the system breathes a little bit of air. Do not try to modernize the fluid unless you have modernized the hardware.
That's a great line. Don't modernize the fluid unless you modernize the hardware.
Exactly. If you've put an all-aluminum radiator, a modern water pump, and new silicone hoses in that 65 Mustang, then sure, maybe you can run a modern HO8. But if you're still running the original brass heater core,
Stick to green.
stick to green. The heater core is usually the first thing to leak, and it's usually the hardest and most expensive thing to change. Don't risk a $500 repair for the sake of an extra 3 years between coolant changes. It's just not worth it.
It's amazing how much science is hidden in these plastic jugs.
Yeah.
It really changes how you look at the maintenance schedule. It's not just drain and fill, it's match and protect.
It is a long-term reliability decision. We see it all the time at restoration shops. A guy brings in a beautiful car, and he's chasing a persistent overheating issue. We pull the water pump, and the impeller is just gone. It's been dissolved by electrolysis. Or the radiator looks like a sprinkler because all the solder joints have failed. And almost always the story is, well, the fluid in it was kind of brown, so I put this gold coolant in because it looked cool. Or this red stuff costs more, so it must be better.
The more expensive equals better. Fallacy.
It's deadly when it comes to chemistry. Better for a 2024 Honda is not better for a 1968 Dodge. They are different animals living in different worlds.
I want to circle back to something we touched on with the universal yellow, the top-off scenario.
Yeah.
This feels like the most common real-world situation for the average person. You are on a road trip, you check your oil and fluids at a gas station. You notice the coolant reservoir is a little below the low line. The gas station only sells one brand of universal coolant. What do?
That is the dilemma. If you are dangerously low, like the engine is at risk of overheating right now, you add water.
Just water.
Just water. Distilled water if you can get it. Most gas stations sell jugs of distilled water for batteries and irons. But yes, in a pinch, tap water is safer than mixing unknown chemistries.
Why is that? I think most people would be terrified to put plain water in, thinking they need the special chemicals.
Water transfers heat better than coolant, actually. Pure water is the best coolant in terms of thermodynamics. The coolant, the glycol, is there for 3 reasons. To stop freezing, to raise the boiling point under pressure, and to stop rust. In an emergency, water gets you home without triggering a chemical reaction.
And it dilutes your protection.
It will dilute your freeze protection, yes, so you need to fix it before winter. You'll need to test the concentration later. But water will not turn your coolant into jelly. It's the safe bet.
But if you buy that universal yellow bottle and dump it in,
You might solve the low-level problem today, but you are planting a chemical time bomb for next year. You are introducing unknown variables into a complex system. It's just not worth the risk.
this has been incredibly eye-opening. I think we've successfully destroyed the rainbow chart method of buying auto parts.
I hope so. It's a little more homework, but it's worth it. You spend thousands, maybe tens of thousands, on the car, spend 5 minutes reading the label on a $20 jug of fluid.
So let's wrap this up with some final takeaways for everyone.
Sure. Number 1, coolant protects the entire system. It's not just about temperature, it's about corrosion protection. It is a critical chemical component of your engine.
Right, it's not just colored water.
Not at all. Number 2, choosing the right fluid is a reliability decision. If you get it wrong, the failure won't happen today, but it will happen, and it will be expensive and silent.
And number 3,
If you are unsure, verify the spec. Do not trust the bottle cap color. Find the code in your manual and match it to the code on the bottle. And for our restoration listeners, stick to what the engine was designed for. Simple is often safer.
I love that. Simple is safe.
It really is.
Before we sign off, I want to leave the listener with a provocative thought. We've been talking about the fluid inside the bottle, but let's think about the fluid inside your radiator right now. Do you actually know what it is? Not just what color it is, because we've established that means almost nothing. But do you know the chemistry? And more importantly, if you bought your car used, what did the previous owner put in there?
That is the scary question. Did they top it off with universal? Did they get a leak and just keep adding tap water full of minerals? Did they mix green and orange?
If you don't know the answer, maybe your next weekend project shouldn't be a wax and polish. Maybe it should be a full, proper flush and fill.
I couldn't agree more. Get to a baseline you can trust. Flush it out completely, start fresh with the correct spec fluid, and write down what you used and the day you did it.
Huge thanks to Bluewater Auto Restoration for presenting this deep dive. If you want to see the incredible work they do or learn more about preserving these machines, you can visit them at BWAR.CA. We are not going to mention where we got the data for today, but rest assured it's all based on hard chemistry, not marketing fluff.
Indeed, always check the specs.
And remember, our deep dives are available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or SoundCloud. Make sure you are subscribed so you don't miss next Saturday morning's release.
We have some great topics coming up.
We do. Until next week, keep checking those specs, and please don't trust the colors.
Stay safe out there.
Bye for now.